The term male gaze was labelled by Laura Mulvey in her 1975 writings Visual Pleasure and Narrative Cinema, suggesting its presence in the film world. The film industry is not the only form of arts and visual culture guilty of the male gaze. The use of the male gaze is also present in the paintings throughout our history. In general, the term can be described by the roles of both man and woman, where the man is active in the role and is the bearer of looking, and the woman being the passive object of which a man would lay their eyes on. Because of this, there is more focus on satisfying male pleasure rather than female, which ultimately sexualizes women. Laura Mulvey explains these roles by starting with the role of woman. I quote, "In their traditional exhibitionist role, women are simultaneously looked at and displayed with their appearance coded for strong visual and erotic impact. For the men, I quote, the man's role as the active one forwarding the story, making things happen. The man controls the film fantasy and also emerges as a representative of power." Take a look at the first work I've picked out regarding the male gaze from the 19th century France, Waiting for a Client by Edgar Degas in 1879. Degas, being one of the founders of Impressionism, was not short of depicting everyday scenes, nor scenes of women. The charcoal drawing depicts three prostitutes waiting for work in Paris as they sit in a relaxed manner on some yellow sofas. Degas shows the normality of the situation by the way he positions the women and shows their posture to be laid back or uninterrupted, not to mention happily sitting naked with one another. Prostitutes were common in Paris, especially after the Franco-Prussian War, where the German soldiers would regularly visit brothels in France, according to the French book Boule de Surf, which portrays life in Paris at the time. Not only this, but prostitutes were cheaper than models, and were therefore painted more often than not. Waiting for a Client is an example of this. This painting is an example perhaps not as obvious as a painting such as A Bar at the Folies Bergère by Manet. The prostitutes are the object of which the viewer looks, or perhaps the eyesight of a client waiting at the door. Bearing in mind the viewer is most likely to be male when paying for prostitutes. The male gaze sexualizes women by objectifying them in the arts, but Degas expresses this without subtle nature by the use of prostitutes rather than a woman walking down the street, for example. There is no doubt that in the film industry the male gaze exists. The James Bond films, for example, are made predominantly for male pleasure, as males idolise Bond. He's intelligent, daring, and talented, but most importantly gets the girl in the end. Every film there is a different Bond girl which Bond gazes upon. Other films, such as The Wolf of Wall Street, have similar effects to the male gaze, with the wife of the actor, Leonardo DiCaprio, having a very sexual and erotic role. Mulvey believes that women are in fact the bearer of meaning and not the maker of meaning, which suggests that women are not placed in a role where they can take control of the scene. Instead, they are simply put there to be observed from an objectified point of view. She believes this occurs because of the male dominance in the film industry and the idea that it attracts an audience more so than not when a female is being sexual. The problem with this is the use of the male gaze in the arts that embeds itself in our culture, sexualizing women, and the idea that males are more dominant is becoming more normal, which holds its own further issues.